Okay, there we go. Good morning, everyone. Happy Father's Day. Let's see here. All right. If you're a dad, I hope you have a blessed day. It's good to have kids. I am blessed by my four daughters every day. Okay, a couple of people here going so far. All right. So, just a little warm up here. Um, Yesterday, I was down in Corvallis, Oregon for my third daughter's college graduation. She graduated top of her class in sociology, so really proud of her. So we spent the day in Reser Stadium, which was fun. It was a blast. Nicholas Kristoff was the commencement speaker, and it was fantastic. He gave a great and very inspiring um, speech. Let's see. This last week, I did pick up some 74s. Um, hey, there's Chauncey and Raji and Ian. I guess Ian has some work to do today. Right on. Jack, is it Jack? No, Frank. I am one of us, right, Frank? Isn't that right? Okay. Anyway, so I'll just show a few records here before we get on to our guest. I picked up this Ohio Players Fire. I have the Skin Tight from 74. This is one that Yvonne showed last week that he had, so that was really cool to come by. I found this one. It wasn't on my list. It's Sunny Stitt, Satan. I haven't listened to it yet, but I guess he's like a funk saxophonist. It's kind of fun. It's kind of interesting cover, isn't it? That record is fire. Yes, it is, Chauncey. Ohio Players. One that was I didn't know about it, but I guess it's kind of a desirable record from '74. Goldberg, Barry Goldberg. I guess he was in some other bands too. And I was hoping I would like it. It's just kind of an acoustic lo-fi record. And my first thought was he's no Nick Drake, but nonetheless, it's a '74, so I had to get it. And it's okay. It's not bad. Um, a common $1 record that I found at a thrift shop, and I thought the cover was fantastic. I haven't listened to this yet either. Ovid Young, A Celebration of Praise. I guess he's an organist, so it's a gospel album, but I just love those glasses. Look at that guy. Fantastic. Um, one that is really good that I listened to was this guy, Tolinen, I think is how you pronounce it. He's a Finnish. It's kind of like jazz guitar. It's got some horns in it and stuff like that. But I think it's on Janus or Jane. Yeah, Janus or Janus. I'm not sure how to pronounce the label, but this was really good. I felt fortunate to grab this one. Another one that that I didn't know existed in '74 that came out. This is R. Crumb and his Cheap Suit Serenaders. I think most of you guys know R. Crumb, the cartoonist. There's a really cool documentary. This is on Blue Goose, but this is interesting. I haven't listened to it yet, but excited to that it was a '74 and found it. So that's cool. Let's see. One that was at the top of my list from the very beginning, but I haven't been able to find the '74. Seen lots of other copies of their albums, but found Gentle Giant, Power and the Glory. It's a good album. Harder to come by in the wild, I guess. Not that I think it's like a $25 to $35 record, but I was really happy to add that. One that I got yesterday coming back from Corvallis, we stopped at the Albany Goodwill, and I found this one. This is the Bluegrass Band. It was recorded at Eastern Washington University and mixed in Portland, Oregon in '74. I need to clean it yet before I listen to it, but it was I'm really excited to get this because I don't think it's one that comes around a whole lot. It's not. I don't think it's worth a whole lot of money, maybe $20, but these kind of independent press albums, you never know when you're going to come across them. And since I don't buy online, when you get them in the wild, it's fun. So I'm looking forward to listening to this afternoon. And then one non-74 that I picked up that I was really excited about, and it's a fantastic album. When I was growing up, you all know that I was a gospel kid, didn't get into secular music until I was at the end of high school and out of high school, really. So I'm still kind of a newbie. But I used to listen to this guy named Steve Taylor, and his big kind of Christian hit was "Meltdown." But he put this album out in 1987 called "I Predict 1990," and this is fantastic. It's so good. Check out Steve Taylor if any of you are interested in something like that. So anyway, um, I have a really cool guest today. I'm very excited to have him. Um, you know, when we think of, we all have our favorite record stores and record stores that we go into, and one thing that's common, I think, in record stores is there's kind of this there's kind of this smug persona that a lot of record store uh, owners kind of project a little bit. I don't think it's that they're bad dudes. I just think it's that, it's I don't know, it's kind of an artsy thing, and so it's common, I think, to go into a record store and you say hi to the guy and he kind of acknowledges you or whatever. But this guy, um, whenever I go into his store, he knows who I am. He always has a smile on his face. The crew that he's got working for him always is happy to see me. They've got whenever and then as I'm there digging in the shop, everyone else that comes in, he's always happy to see him. And so today, my guest is Matt from Too Many Records. Glad to have you, Matt.
What's up, Marty? How are you?
You're doing so good. Thank you so much for spending an hour or so with us this morning and talking about records.
Thanks for thinking about me. I wanted to start off by actually giving you a 74 recommendation, if you don't mind.
Oh yeah, for sure.
You might own this one, and if you don't, you should definitely track it down.
Okay.
This is a record by Paul Desmond called Skylark.
I don't have that one.
All right, so I am not the biggest jazz guy, as anyone who
Yeah,
knows me
I'm
knows.
learning. I don't know a whole lot yet, but
I don't know a whole lot. Most jazz, I'm still kind of trying to wrap my head around, especially more of like the bop and modal stuff. But what I will say is I've learned that I love Gabor Szabo, and he's a jazz guitarist, and he's featured all over this record. And it makes it a very beautiful, very palatable for even like a casual jazz fan listen. And it is a 74. So
very cool. Okay, I'll put that on the list. I don't think
yeah,
I have it on my list.
yeah, I think people enjoy it.
Matt, I don't think I've showed this to you when I come in the store. This is my master list.
Oh, I didn't even know you had a catalog. That's cool.
Yeah.
I thought you were just kind of like
Yeah, and you can see a lot of them are crossed out along the way, but I've got hundreds on here. Last night I when I cataloged that new bluegrass, I'm at 911 albums from 74.
So what's the stopping point? Is it just finishing the list?
That's a good idea. I don't know. When I had 100 of them, I thought, wow, there's a lot of records here. And then I kept cataloging them, finding, I would go on Spotify, find an artist, and then it gives recommendations at the bottom of other artists. And I go to their discography and see the albums. And so I'd add them to the list. But I'm constantly finding albums that aren't on the list. So, and since I don't buy them online, I've bought one online from Mexico, and I've purchased a couple from friends but I don't really count that as in the wild.
Sure.
That they've sent them to me. But so I think it's going to stretch it out for years. I mean, there are
a total amount. Do you know the amount of records released in 74?
That's a great question. I mean, there has to be. I still have hundreds left on my list, so there has to be at least 1,500. And then, of course, there's all these gospel independent presses that are regional all over the place. So I could go to Missouri and find a handful there and all over. So it'll probably never stop.
Yeah.
I'll probably just keep going.
If outside of private press, I wonder if there's a way to find out exactly how many independent and major label releases came out in a certain year. I mean, nowadays it'd be impossible with Bandcamp and SoundCloud. It'd be literally an impossible task to figure that out. But back then,
you would think with the major labels there would be some sort of a master list or some catalog of albums released each year, but I haven't come across any like that. No.
Maybe you're the one to make it.
Maybe so. That would be an undertaking for sure. But it's been lots of fun. All right, so let's get into your history a little bit. Where were you born, Matt?
So I was born in New Jersey, and I lived there for about a year. And then my family decided to move across the entire country to Northern California.
Okay. All right. And you grew up, went to school in Northern Cal. Where at in Northern California?
So I was in Marin, kind of in like the Mill Valley, Corte Madera area, if you're familiar.
Okay. Okay. Like, is that close to the Bay Area?
Yeah, it's in the Bay Area.
It's in the Bay Area. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Really nice place to grow up. I loved it.
Yeah.
I was there until I was 12, and then my parents moved me all the way back to New Jersey again.
Oh,
So
wow.
you can imagine eighth grade wasn't the best year to try to go make a whole bunch of new friends
Yeah,
across the country,
right?
but
Yeah.
it's a character building
It
experience.
sure is. We had a couple of big moves when I was a kid too, and at the time it's torture, but now I'm thankful for the how it made me stretch and stuff.
I agree. I feel the
Yeah.
same.
Were you always into music, or did that come later, or what was your first kind of introduction? And what were your first like memories of getting into a band or a certain style of music?
So I feel like I like to think I have a fairly eclectic taste in music these days, and I think
You
it's
do. I've witnessed that. You show stuff that I'm like, wow, where did that come from? Yeah.
I think it started early. Happy Father's Day to my dad. I don't know if he's gonna watch this. He
Yeah.
probably
Happy
will,
Father's
but
Day.
he is probably the foundational element of me loving music. I mean, his taste is um, he likes what he likes, but he really likes what he likes. So I would
Mm.
say the house growing up was always Bob Dylan's his favorite artist. We had a lot of Peter, Paul and Mary, Simon and Garfunkel, the Beatles. Um, so a little bit of Pink Floyd, which feels like a little bit of a jump for him musically, but
Okay.
he introduced me to Animals, which is one of my favorite records of all time.
Yeah.
Um, so that was kind of like before I discovered my own music, that's what I gravitated to. And then in high school, I was definitely an outlier because, in addition to those kind of like 60s artists, my dad is a huge doo-wop encyclopedia. So he was always playing doo-wop in the house.
Oh,
And
okay.
somehow, my main friend group in high school, I managed to find four other dudes that also loved doo-wop.
Huh.
And I went to high school in like, the early to mid 2000s. So it's like very strange to come across that. So in high school, I was listening to doo-wop and arena rock. So like Journey, Def Leppard, Styx, Foreigner.
Okay.
And that was an interesting. You don't really fit in perfectly when that's your kind of
Yeah.
your
Yeah.
two
Yeah.
lanes when you're 15. But then eventually I started to get more into kind of the more mainstream, especially when like I went to school in the rise of file sharing and like the early days of
Napster.
like the
Yeah.
late days of Napster, the early days of like Kazaa and LimeWire.
Okay.
Um, and that led me to just discover so much more. Like I started getting into like System of a Down, and my favorite band in high school was the Killers, and it kind of expanded my taste into more of like a hip hop and rock sense,
Okay.
I guess I would say.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, now, so you were file sharing, but that was CD time. Did your dad have cassettes, or was it records, or what were you listening? What was your dad playing music on?
So interestingly enough, my dad has always owned record players, but he never had them set up in the house ever. In fact, to this day, he has boxes and boxes
Oh,
in his place
really?
of completely boxed up, very nice gear, like a Thorins from the '90s, like some really
Yeah.
high end stuff that's just sitting in boxes that I keep encouraging him to set up. But
Yeah.
uh, no, I would say majority of my listening growing up was CDs in the house, cassettes in his car. He had like a '87 Jaguar, and we used to listen
Nice.
to cassettes in it. And uh, a cassette got stuck in there once for a long time, and it was Bob Dylan's "Infidels."
Uh-huh.
So Joker Man was on repeat for a very long time in my childhood, and I still love that song to this day. It's like the
That's
opposite of
awesome.
PTSD. It's like I just love it.
Yeah.
Um, and then yeah, for me it was a lot of digital. I mean, I got my first, it was like an Arcos Media jukebox, like an early MP3 player,
Okay.
um, and then of course the iPod.
Did, now did you get into records before you came to Oregon?
Yeah, so I came to Oregon in 2020.
Okay, so, I mean, you've had the channel for 10 years, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, since 2015. So yeah, about 10 years.
Yeah. What made you start the channel, or what was the origin story there?
So I had gotten into records in around 2013. I was kind of just curious about the medium and the fact that like there were still stores that sold records, and I knew people that listened to them, and I just never really spent time with it. And I was curious, A, the difference in sound, and B, like what drew people to it. I always enjoyed collecting growing up.
Mhm.
For a while I collected like retro video games as like a high schooler and college kid. Um, I got out of that way before it got really valuable. So I
Right.
sold all my stuff before they became extremely rare.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just started buying records. I bought so I got my first turntable in 2013. It was an Audio Technica LP60,
Mhm.
and like a lot of those have the issue where because there's no counterweight, they can cause records to skip and have issues depending on. It's kind of like a luck of the draw from the factory.
Yeah.
Um, I was buying brand new records and they were skipping, and I looked into it, found out that was the reason, and I got super lucky. I got before the crazy rush of everyone trying to get vintage gear. I found a guy on Craigslist who was selling like a 70s Pioneer receiver and turntable set, like a really nice, like these days they would go for a lot of
Yeah.
money. And I think I got them for $40 each, and they
Oh,
played perfectly.
nice.
And
Yeah,
I
those
still
deals
have
are
them.
hard to come by now for sure.
Yeah, I still have them in the store right now. That's my
Oh, that's what you're spinning in the store. Nice.
the turntable
Okay.
that I use in the store is my first turntable.
Oh, that's cool. I didn't know that. That's very
Yeah,
cool.
yeah.
So you had the record collection while you're down in California. Did you have favorite shops you like to go to down there, or did you thrift? How did you collect?
Yeah, I mean, so the bulk of my collecting, where I kind of grew my collection to the size it is now, definitely happened my 7 years in LA between 2013 and 2019 or so. Um, I I was a zealot, man. I was going to like all the like it was obsessive. I mean, as I'm sure many of us can
Yeah.
relate to. I was 10 minutes door to door to Amoeba Hollywood, the original Amoeba Hollywood, and I would be there at least once a week, if not more.
Right.
It's just the excitement of going there every time and having a huge turnaround of used records to look at every time. It was just unbelievable the amount of stock they put out every day.
Yeah.
Um, and the amount of the crazy finds I would have there over the years. My favorite. Do you want to hear my favorite find I
Yes,
had?
of
Yeah.
course.
So, are you an Alice in Chains guy by chance?
No, I have lots of friends that are, but I don't know much about them.
So, to me, I think that they're the best grunge band. I have a weird. I love grunge. It's one of my. A lot of people know Pearl
Mhm.
Jam's one of my favorite bands. I think that 10 is the best grunge record of all time, but I do think that
Okay.
Alice in Chains overall is the best grunge band. And their first record at the time, Facelift, had never had a proper pressing. I think outside of maybe like there were some like South American pressings, I think, but there wasn't
Uh-huh.
like a proper repress or it wasn't available to get at the time. And I went to the Alice in Chains section and I pulled out an EP of theirs called "We Die Young," and I was like, "Oh, this is cool. It's like early material." It was like I think they wanted like $35 for it, and I was like, "This is awesome. I don't have this. I'll get it." And I bring it home and I pull it out, and the disc has the label for Facelift, their first record, and all the tracks on it. I had counted the tracks, and I was like, "Wait, how is this possible?" And I went on Discogs and I immediately saw as a promo back then, they were putting a promo copy of Facelift into We Die Young jackets and sending that to, I
Oh,
guess, maybe
wow.
radio stations and stores and things like that. It was never commercially available. And someone at Amoeba did not do their
They
research
missed
properly.
it.
Uh,
Yeah.
and to this day, one of my most prized records. It's since gotten a repress. That sounds great, but
Yeah.
it just
That's cool.
the joy of finding something like that in the wild for that price is just like the
Yeah.
dopamine's unheard of.
It is. It's a drug, there's no doubt about it. I mean, going to an antique mall or something like that and finding a $3 record that's worth a lot of money, or not even that's not just one that you know you'll never come across again. You're never gonna find that Alice in Chains record again,
No,
probably,
and I
right?
haven't.
Yeah,
No.
yeah, and you go through tens of thousands of records all the time, so
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
that's cool.
Amoeba Hollywood was definitely my favorite store, but there were so many stores in LA that I would love. Atomic Records in Burbank always had some great finds there. The guys that run that store are great. I used to go to Freak Beat Records in Sherman Oaks a lot. Um,
So what took you to LA?
so I used to be an actor.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Okay, I didn't know that about you.
yeah. So
Okay.
you haven't seen me in anything. That's the
Okay.
next question everyone asks. But
Alright.
I acted in high school or all through growing up, but then in high school and college, I did all the shows. I had the leads in most of them, and
Okay.
I really thought like this is what I wanted to do with my life. And I moved to New York City after I graduated college, and was doing some acting there, and found I was getting cast and stuff. And I was like, okay, next step is Los Angeles, and my goal was to kind of move away from theater and do a little more screen.
Hmm.
Um, And yeah, I grinded it out for about 3 years in LA before I kind of the love was kind of beaten out of me. It became a lot less about doing the work and appreciating the art, and way more about just networking
Mm,
and it just felt very it just the scene in LA felt very fake, and it didn't feel very rewarding comparatively.
okay.
Um, so I guess that's kind of why the channel started. I felt like it was a way that I could perform and create content of sorts that was on my control versus like having, going to endless auditions and being like, not this one.
Yeah, that's interesting. So you're in LA for 3 years, and what was the did you move then up to Oregon from LA?
So I was in LA for a total of 7, and then
7
I
years,
moved
okay,
back to New York because I missed it in 2019.
okay.
Um, and then that was right before 2020, so it was kind of tough. My timing wasn't great.
Right,
Living in New York during the
and
start
shut
of
down.
COVID was
Yeah,
really hard, especially a fairly small place with thousands of records. It wasn't super tenable.
right.
But it was at that point that I was kind of thinking, okay, maybe I should open a record store. Maybe that would be a fun thing to give a shot. I think
Yeah,
I had been to enough stores where I knew what I wanted out of a store, and I think having talked to people on my channel for so many years, I knew what other people wanted, um, and I thought Portland was the spot for it.
yeah, so did you have friends in Portland or what? That it would have been, that's a big move across the country to
Yeah,
start a new business, let alone a record store, which has gotta be it's not like it's not like you're starting something that you can just go out and purchase all the inventory for right off the giddy up and whatever.
right.
Why describe a little bit more about why Portland?
Well, I was just trying to figure out where to move, and I was kind of looking at a map, and I was like crossing off, okay, this is like too expensive, too hot, too cold, and kind of just like like Xing states out. And then I always knew that Portland was supposed to have this very vibrant record scene. I'd never been before. And when I saw how many record stores were in Portland, to me, it wasn't intimidating. It was more of a proof of concept because
Yeah.
when you have a used record store, um, it's not really in direct competition with the other stores necessarily because
Mhm.
everyone has different stock.
Right.
And what I've learned over the years, especially in Portland, is that for the most part, most of the stores feel like a community where we support each other. We want each other to succeed. If we don't have what you're looking for, we're like, oh, maybe try
Oh,
this
that's
store,
cool.
maybe try that store. And I think that
Yeah,
is
you've recommended, other stores to me after I've dug at your place for a while, and you've sent me a few other places, which has been cool.
I think it's really important because it keeps the collectors, as long as people want to keep collecting records, doesn't matter if they're buying from you that day or someone else, as long it just keeps the hobby alive, which keeps your store flowing with
Yeah.
stuff, whether it's trade-ins or buys.
So did you move to Portland and then look for a location? What was the process of finding your place on Lombard there and the move out here?
Yeah, so I moved here and almost immediately started the hunt for a location. It was very challenging to find a
Yeah.
location. It took me about a year of really hitting the ground hard. I was kind of flummoxed by the amount of people that were trying to get 3 to 5 year commitments with these really high rents
Mm.
during, that was kind of like still like the pandemic was not like
Yeah,
over.
yeah,
So it felt very strange. Like I understand from their perspective wanting to lock people into those things, but like
sure.
it just isn't appealing for someone trying to rent the space. So I went down the road with 3 or 4 different spots that I really liked, but they wouldn't budge on the terms, or the rent was just a little high, and they would only knock off like $100 or something. And it felt like a little too risky for my first business. I was an English major. I didn't really prepare myself
For the
educationally
business, yeah.
open a retail store. Um, but it felt too risky to do like a 5 year commitment. Um, and then I stumbled on this space, and it's a little off the beaten path. But I was walking around the space when it was empty, and I was like, I was visualizing how the store could look. I liked that it had a parking lot, and the terms and the rent were far more agreeable than anywhere else I looked. And I said, you know what? Even if it starts here, I think this is the right place to start, and we'll see
Yeah,
if I outgrow it or if I want to move. And we just had our 3 year anniversary, and
right.
I have no plans to move. I think it's a good spot.
I love it. It's, it's just it's like 2 minutes off the 5.
Yep.
So I ride my bike up and, it's very convenient and, yeah,
Right
just
off
on
the
the on
max
the
too.
on the north side. Yeah, that's right, you are right off the
Yeah.
Max.
Super accessible, whether you have a car or not. You can get to the shop.
Yeah.
It's it's nice.
Yeah, it's great. The layout of the floor of the your floor plan is nice, the way you display you got a big, holy moly wall and it seems that you're putting new stuff out a lot.
Yeah.
Like you're not I'm not digging through the same stuff when I come back. Now I don't get up since I'm an hour south, I don't get up a whole lot, but when I do come up, there's always new stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah,
our philosophy so far, which is maybe a tough precedent to set, is that every day we try to do a flip video on Instagram where we put out
I
at
see
least
those. Yeah,
20 records that are like pretty ideally things that might catch someone's eye. Like the goal is like one of these might bring someone in the store today. And then outside of that, we're trying to put stuff in the bins almost every day too, just like, maybe things that aren't quite um as shiny, but things that just it'll keep the bins feeling fresh.
yeah,
So, we've been lucky that we've had a pretty good conveyor belt of used collections since we've opened
yeah.
to be able to continue to do that and hold ourselves to that standard, because I do think that the flip videos are directly tied to the success of the store. I think that
I would
without,
I've often wondered about that. I see those and I'm always watching through the whole flip to see if there's something,
yeah,
right? It's almost like you're digging, through your fingers as you do that. Yeah, and have seen a few, that I'm like, "Oh, if I could get up there." Yeah, for sure.
it,
So when you started the store, did you put some of your own collection in for inventory to start? What did you do? What was your first inventory that you put in the store? How did that come about?
so in my process of trying to find a location, I was also hitting the ground looking for collections, and I was reaching out on, Nextdoor, Facebook Marketplace, like just whatever I could to kind of get my name in from people and say, hey, I'm looking to buy record collections. And um, a surprising amount of them kind of popped, and people would be like, hey, I got records, come check them out. And um, I had acquired a couple thousand records just from various collections over the 6 to 8 months before opening. And then, I have quite a few records, as you know, and
Yeah.
I I don't romanticize the idea of hoarding them as much as I used to. And
Mhm.
I was definitely able to take a large chunk, um, I don't know, maybe 500 records from my collection of cool stuff and add it to the initial stock. When the store first opened, um, it looked terrible. It was really like
Oh,
looking back,
really?
it's very funny. I had other store owners in town actually talk to me and laugh. I was laughing with them because they were like, "Yeah, we saw pictures and we were like, what is happening?" And like we
Huh,
had like the windows like with the blackout curtains. People were like, "It looks like it's like what's going on in there is like sketchy." Like
huh.
we didn't figure out like our visual identity for maybe 6 months. At first, there
Yeah,
was just like the walls looked, or like the walls were good and the perimeter was nice, but the middle of the store was a disaster. It was just like a folding table with boxes on it. It felt like the store didn't know what it wanted to be for a while.
yeah.
Um,
And
but
that's something that you can't know until you spend some days doing it, I
yeah,
assume. Yeah.
it changes all the time too. I mean, we're every few months we're revamping the layout. Like we
Yeah,
recently
it's been a little
added,
bit different. You got a nice little lounge area for people to relax and talk, and
yeah,
people I noticed that there's conversations going on across the store and stuff, people that you know and that regulars that are coming in and people that know each other that are coming in, meeting and stuff like that. It's pretty cool.
it is cool. I've actually seen a good amount of people who have met at the store that have built relationships outside to hang out
Oh,
and
that's cool.
shows. And
Yeah.
part of the reason I wanted to open a record store and not just sell online is that I did want to kind of foster a community. I was moving into a new place where I didn't have a community, so I was like, I need to take what I'm passionate about and try to build one. And I think we've done just that. We have in-store performances for local artists. We have
Yeah.
these every month or so. We do these drops, which I think is unique to our store too, where we pick a genre that we've happened to acquire a lot of in collections over X months, and we slot them aside. And then one Saturday, we're just like, okay, this is the hip hop drop. We're putting out 200 used hip hop records on this Saturday, and then that gets all the hip hop heads to come in and they talk
Yeah.
to each other. They get excited about stuff, and it just feels like it feels nice to kind of witness the community all coming together in different ways.
Yeah, when you find somebody that is into records like you, it doesn't even have to be the same genre, but there's that mutual understanding, I guess, mutual admiration society that is vinyl,
Yeah,
and it is yeah, it's very neat and comforting, and it's always good to make new connections because it's not while records are big and it seems like sometimes it's getting bigger and stuff, it's still not wide. There's still a relatively small amount of people that are into records
yeah,
on the whole.
I would agree.
Yeah. What what were some of the non-record acquiring challenges for starting a business like getting I mean you have to get bank accounts, you got to get insurance, you got
Yeah.
to get all sorts of you got your branding, your logo, that kind of stuff. Did you just kinda tackle that stuff one step at a time, or what was that like?
Yeah, I mean, I felt lucky that I had spent so many years working on the branding, and I just kind of like one to one moved it over. So it's like the Too Many Records channel is now a physical space, also. So
Yeah,
a lot of that branding was able to kind of just move over, and you get the sign made, you get the accounts set up. All of that was fairly plug and play. It wasn't that complicated. Anyone could do that. I think the hard part for me has been, um, interestingly enough, having done so much like self promotion online over the years for my YouTube channel, it's hard to figure out ways to get people into the shop. Like, we are lucky that we get a lot of people that discover us just organically through Google or through word of mouth, but finding successful avenues to kind of market the store to get people to actually come in is a challenge, because we notice that when people come in, they usually leave with something.
yeah,
But off, and it's also an interesting business because this is a kind of funny anecdote. Before I opened, I was talking to people and trying to get advice from people, and they were like, "Okay, figure out how many records you need to sell every day to be successful." And I'm like, "That's not even a relevant metric. Like, that
yeah,
doesn't make sense, because I could sell one record for $800 and be great for the day,
right,
um, or I could sell $100 records and be like, this was not a good day."
right.
So it's kind of like trying to wrap your head around the fact that one person walking in could make the entire day worth it. It's like,
Mhm.
there's not a lot of retail places necessarily, I feel like, that can necessarily be that same.
Yeah, absolutely. It would be because the price and the value of the records is so different across the board that yeah, I'm sure you have swings in both directions.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
Now, what days are you open 7 days a week, or are you closed on Mondays and Tuesdays, or what?
We're closed Mondays. We're
Okay.
talking about possibly trying to be open 7 days a week. We just need to figure out scheduling wise how it could work. But yeah, we're open Tuesday through Sunday, 12 to 8. At first, our hours were different. We had kind of limited hours for the first maybe 6 to 8 months, and I think that was bad. I wish I could go back in time and not do that. But
Yeah.
we were open, like, I think it was like 3 to 8 Wednesday through Friday, and then I don't know. It was just a very strange. It was very strange.
Yeah. So it's better to have some continuity in the hours and yeah. Now, are there other record stores that are open that late? I mean, that's really cool for somebody who works till 5 or 6. They still got a couple hours to come in.
There aren't many. So Music Millennium, which is obviously the big dog in town,
Yeah.
they're up until I think 10, I believe.
Okay.
Um, but in terms of like the smaller, more independent stores, like, no, most of them close by 7. And I think what's interesting is that we get a lot of people between 7 and 8, who are looking to record shop, and there's not a ton of options. Even people that discover us because of that, where they're like, "Oh,
Yeah.
we were just searching what's open and we found you." Also, if people are trying to sell records between 7 and 8, there aren't a ton of options in town. So we
Right.
have noticed that having those extra hours has afforded us some opportunities that we wouldn't have had if we closed at like 5 or 6.
Yeah, I think so, absolutely, and it like, for somebody like me who works until 4 or 5 or at least, if I wanna come up during the week, I have time to come up because it take me an hour. I guess with traffic, it'd probably take me about an hour and 20 minutes to get to your place, but I can
Yeah.
I can do that. Generally, I come up on the weekends when I'm off, but, that's nice. Do you still have a is there any, I mean, I've seen some videos where you're going out, you're driving to go get record collections and stuff like that. Is finding records a challenge now, or quality records, I guess I should say?
So yes and no. I mean, as the hobby gets bigger, like you said, it is fairly niche still, but people are aware that uh, records have value now compared to
Mhm.
15 years ago, and I think it's good and bad. It's good in the sense that a lot of people are more willing to sell their records because they're like, oh, I don't really listen to these, and I can make some money. But it's bad because a lot of people will now think that their records that aren't worth a lot are worth a lot, and you get a
Yeah,
lot of people that you try to politely explain, these big band records aren't worth anything, and sometimes they get a little offended and or think you're lying to them, and it's a tricky line to walk to be able to tell somebody you have to donate these to Goodwill. No one's going to buy these,
yeah,
or finding things that are good and then people want way too much for them, more than you can justify, even if you're trying to be generous. When you buy a collection in bulk, you need to have the margin to justify the buy, and that takes into account the fact that you need to clean them, store them, price them, and then take all the time it takes to sell through them. And a lot of people who are selling collections see how much they're going for on Discogs and expect to get that median price, and it's like,
right.
well, that's close to what we price it at, so that
Yeah.
doesn't make any sense. It's kind of like this gymnastics of trying to find people that understand the business and are willing to sell things and also have them be good.
Yeah, if you have 1,000 records that you wanna sell, you can't sell those 1,000 records for what you could get for if you took all the time to sell them individually, clean them, sleeve them. You may be able to get closer to what you want, but it's gonna take you 2 years to sell those 1,000 records.
Yeah.
And so likewise, then you have to purchase if you're putting the money out for 1,000 plus records, you can't look at those individually. You have to kinda don't you ha I mean, I'm sure you go through 1,000 records and you're gonna pick out 10 or 15 or 50, ones that you're gonna pay up for a little bit more, but you have to kinda don't you kinda gotta average, "Well, listen, I can only pay $3 per record for these records or $10 or whatever."
Every buy is different. It kind of depends on what the stock is and what your relationship is with the person that's buying it or that's selling it. But when you go to a collection that big, there's just no way to look at everything. So
Yeah,
basically, my method is I'll pull out, like you said, the kind of choice items that I know are fairly valuable, and I'll look at conditions of those. And if the conditions are pretty good, and they claim that the conditions are pretty good across the board, you kind of just have to take them at face value. And every
yeah,
time I've been burnt by this, like every single collection I've ever bought where they're like, everything's really clean, you inevitably pull out stuff that just is thrashed or beat, and you're just like, well, I would have never
yeah,
known unless I looked at every record. But yeah, you kind of have to do what you said. You kind of have to take the ones that you know you have to pay up for, and then we don't love doing that method, which is like a lot of stores do, like price piles, where they just kind of like will be like, all right, well, I can pay $1 for each of these, and $2 for each of these, and
mm,
$5 for each of these, because I feel like my goal is to never lowball. I like to think that we pay pretty well because we want people to say they had a good experience and they tell their friends, and then if they
right.
sell their records, they want to come to us. But it's difficult to do what we like to do with huge collections. The ideal for us is if someone brings us like 200 records, we'll sit there and we'll go through every single record and price it the way that we would price it in our store, and then do a percentage based off of that.
Oh, okay.
And that's tough because it takes time,
It does take time.
and sometimes
Yeah,
they say no, and then you just wasted a day just
yeah,
pricing things out that you will never own. Um,
yeah,
so it's kind of like I think it's the fairest way to do it, but it does take time.
yeah, and, there's also that dichotomy between finding a $100 record that in a pile, or that won't sell very easily, or 5 $20 records that are gonna be gone in a week.
Yeah, yeah,
That there so somebody might have some real eclectic, cool stuff, but if they also have, the stuff that's just that you sell every week, every time you put out a copy. What
Bruce.
are some Yeah, speaking of which, what are a few, if y like, with the proviso that you're getting them for what you need to purchase them for, what are some really, like, they just fly out, every time you put them? What are some records that do that?
I would say Zeppelin 1, any Black Sabbath record, uh, Dark Side of the Moon, Wish You Were Here, The Wall, Fleetwood Mac, Rumors. Um,
Rumors goes quick, even though there's a jillion copies out there,
Quick, like
huh?
it doesn't even
Really?
leave new arrivals because there's always a new collector coming in, and Rumors is one of those
And that's
records
one
that
you
everyone
have to have.
loves,
Yeah.
and every time it sells.
Okay.
I don't even think it's ever made it to the F section in
Yeah.
classic rock, but yeah, it's interesting. Like classic rock and adjacent is kind of like where those guarantees are. Um, I guess maybe there are certain artists that or albums that come in and like indie rock that if they come in they sell really fast. Like certain like if you get like Tame Impala or Vampire Weekend or some of the bigger names, like those will sell pretty fast too. Um, but it's the other genres that are more the wild cards, the things that like have the deep collectors like funk, soul, jazz,
Jazz.
um,
Yeah.
like that stuff. Like there's no guarantees. Like we'll put out big name titles like you know like kind of blue and it might just sit there for weeks because that's
Huh.
like what I think you were talking about with Rumors where it's like
Yeah.
a lot of people own it, there's a lot of copies that exist, but for some reason because jazz is more niche than classic rock, um, it's gonna maybe sit more than something like Rumors.
Are there some albums that you think are fantastic or that are just widely known as just fantastic that don't sell as well?
I'm sure there's plenty, yeah.
Yeah.
uh, I mean, what I will say is this: I'm constantly amazed at the stuff that sells and the stuff that doesn't.
Yeah.
Like when we do a drop and I put rare stuff on the wall, or we do a drop, and we put a bunch of really desirable like $20 to $40 records in the bin. Sometimes I'll be at the counter just like, I can't believe that sold in one day, and then there's stuff I'm still looking at the wall weeks later, like you know things that are not necessarily cheap, but things that I feel like our price is fair. Like for example, we have on our 3 year we put out a first press of Siamese Dream, Smashing Pumpkins on orange creamsicle vinyl, and
Yeah.
it's still there. And I think it's cheaper than you can get in that condition online. And I'm just like, I know that there's a repress of it recently, but people still covet the firsts, and I'm just shocked it's there. And there
Huh.
are
Yeah.
some really rare multi-$100 records on the 3 year that sold in a matter of minutes. So there's no predicting
Yeah.
taste and like what people are going to want on any given day, which I think keeps it interesting too.
So one thing that I know you know a lot about is the newer music, to the 20 teens and newer stuff that I don't know a whole lot about. How does that stuff you talk about like classic rock, you mentioned, Floyd and Zeppelin and that kind of stuff that sells really easily. Is your clientele that you've built, are they, you're always gonna sell the classic rock stuff because even the guys that buy the new stuff want some of the classic. But I mean, there's 25 or 50 albums that everybody really you kind of want to have, a Dark Side of the Moon and that kind of stuff.
Right.
Is your, I notice you have a lot of younger people too that come
Yeah.
into the store and that are into vinyl, that didn't know anything about vinyl except for the last 5 years or something like that. So you cater to those people a lot too. I see there's a lot of stuff when you're doing your unboxings and stuff like that, and I'm like, "I don't know this person, I don't know this one." But obviously there's a whole group of people out there, young people. Is that do you feel it that it's vital that you cater to that to the n are you trying to get those young people involved a lot more?
Yeah, I think it's really important because for the longevity of the hobby, it can't just be people in their 30s and up that are collecting records. You
Right.
need to the fact that it is resonating so much with like Gen Z and younger millennials is interesting. I think that the drive to move towards things that are more tangible versus in a world that's like so digital, I think it's a very like it's you can feel that energy, especially with younger people that love. There was a study that came out last year, maybe 2 years ago, where it's something about like a huge percentage of people, I don't remember the percentage, who collect records don't listen to them. They just collect them. And,
Yeah.
you know, I do think that like while I believe records are meant to be played, I'm also like, yeah, it's valid to want to collect records and not play them as just like totems that showcase your taste in music. Like If you
Yeah.
want to like build a wall of records that mean something to you and put them on your wall, even if you don't have the means to play them, I think that's totally fair. And a lot of people come in the store and they just want to buy the records. They want to have the actual physical piece of an album that means a lot to them versus just having
It's a
a,
piece of art, it really is, and
yeah,
it's like you can go to a gallery and spend lots and lots of money on a painting or a print or a big photograph or something like that, but you can also I mean, just the diversity. There's so much creativity in an album cover, and to have a wall in your house or at this I mean, just going into the store and looking at the artwork aside from the music, the stuff that's on the outside, the stuff that you're just looking at is fascinating, and the
yeah,
story behind it, and all that kind of stuff. I really that kind of that dual pleasure of enjoying the music and, considering what went behind why this picture, this painting is on this album cover, and to have an album that to have a piece of art that you can share with a million other people, or one that is totally unique and that there's only 30 people who
yeah,
have this artwork. I think that's really cool. And I've in the 74s, I have lots of albums I'll never listen to again. I listen to everything at least once.
yeah.
And then there's lots that they'll listen to repeatedly, obviously, and that I'll always listen to. And but just to even when if it's not on the wall, just when I go through and I flip through and I forget about something that I bought last year, and I look at that and have that memory and whatever, and see the art again, even though I won't listen to it again. It's fascinating, and then another thing is, like, it's a time capsule as to what, like, when I'm digging, I know the wardrobe, the font of titles and stuff like that's within like a 5-year period from like 72 to
Yeah, I
77.
think you told me that once. Yeah, you can kind of just gauge based on
Yeah,
the art, which is
it's
kind of it's
really wild, and
you're becoming a
it's
master of the
gratifying.
craft.
Yeah, and sometimes I'll be flipping through because I go through so many records, especially when I'm looking for commons. I'm going through the $1 to $3 records and stuff like that, so I don't wanna spend a whole lot of time, but I'll find one that'll look like something from like 1979, and I'll pull it out and it's like 75 or something like that. So I get tricked. Another
Yeah.
one that I notice a lot of is there was a time when the back of the albums were all white.
Hmm.
And that seems to be right before 74. I mean, you can go 60s and 50s, that tons of just white backgrounds with text and stuff, like
Yeah.
maybe a black and white picture. But then once you get into like 72, 73, they start putting color on the back and imagining. And then when you get into more of the late 70s, you'll see more diagonal text.
Hmm.
When you get into stuff like more new wave and and stuff like that, and the post punk and the early 80s stuff, it's completely different. And of course, barcoding comes out like in
Sure.
79 or 80 or so. So whenever I see a barcode, unless it's a repress or something like that, I know it's not
It,
79.
it'd
But
be interesting to be in the room when those people are the marketing's making the decisions on how to change the overall aesthetic of how
and there
the
has to be
records.
some cross pollination, right? Because I see a lot of the same font,
Yeah.
in different, and even across genres like country and rock and roll and stuff like that. And of course, the wardrobes,
Sure.
I can tell now when somebody's wearing more of the late, like a disco. It's not going to be a 74,
Yeah.
but then there's the late 60s to like 71 where they're wearing more colorful, um, like I don't know, like I don't know. I can't think of anything now, but this 73 to like 75 it's more muted. It's not as psychedelic as it used to be. And then it gets a little bit more flamboyant in the late 70s. So
But
it's
then there's also going to be always the artists that try to pay homage to different, like either like specific album covers or eras that kind of like make it feel like you look at it, you're like, when is this from?
yeah. Yeah, absolutely. There's one of the albums that I need to get from 74 is The Residents, and it's like an $800 album, the first press of it. They only did a
Yeah.
thousand of it. And they did the cover is a Beatles, it looks like a Beatles copy. It's
Yeah.
a weird avant-garde record, but I think there's a repress I can probably snag somewhere out
Are you
there.
somebody that tries to always get first over repress, or do you not really care?
Well, there's a few things that since I only buy in the wild, I'm okay with if the original is hundreds of dollars and I can get a repress, that I don't have a problem with that.
Sure.
When I went over to Ireland recently, I haven't been able to find Queen Sheer Heart Attack and then Queen 2, which are both in '74, and I couldn't I just couldn't find them anywhere in the wild here. Wasn't coming across them as much. No, they're out there, but it wasn't. And when I went over to the UK, I wanted to get a UK press of those,
Yeah.
and I couldn't find them even over the original presses, even over there. And they go for, they're going for maybe $50 or more and up for original. But I found two kind of early represses that worked for me. And a
Yeah.
lot of times I'll get them as placeholders. And if I come across an original pressing later, then I'll pick it up and then sell the other one. So I'm not a super stickler on that, but I like first presses if I can get them.
That's
Yeah.
a real thing that I've experienced now that I've owned the store for 3 years is the itch to upgrade. So it's like
Yeah.
oftentimes I will find a more desirable variant or a better sounding pressing or a higher quality condition record that I own, and I'll just like be like, okay, well I'll put my copy in the shop and I'll take this one for
Yeah.
myself. So it's like it's not like adding records to my collection. It's more like transmogrifying them. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And then on the covers too, like I'll get one where the record is fine, but the cover's real beat up, and I like to get a fresher cover. So if I come across a fresher cover, I feel bad about pulling a nice record out of a beat up cover and putting it in and like I'm cheating.
It's like
But if
Frankensteining. You have to be
Yeah,
careful because sometimes there's a slight difference in the cover if it's different press, and then
right.
you've made a record that doesn't exist, and
It,
then it's like if you
yeah,
ever wanted to sell it, you like can't find the exact match because
yeah,
yeah, that happens.
indeed, indeed. Okay, you recently went to Japan. I want to ask you a
Yeah.
little bit about your trip to Japan, and I know you sent a bunch of records back for the
Yes.
shop.
Hmm.
That was your intent. I mean, obviously you wanted to go and hang out in Japan and see Japan and eat some great food and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But you knew that you were going to go there to look for records for the shop too.
Yeah. That was predominantly the reason I could justify it. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Um, was it was it a gas? Was it just like
It was amazing.
on another planet?
Yeah, I've wanted to go for over 10 years, and every year I make an excuse not to go for some reason or another.
Yeah.
And I just see a lot of store owners that I admire going every year or more, and I was like, okay, well if they're doing it, I should do it. Like it's something I've wanted to do. I can kind of justify it for the business. I know what I'm doing, I think, so I should be able to find good records. Um, and the stores out there are just unreal. I mean, it's the amount of stock they have, some of the rarest records I've ever seen, like in person, just sitting like sometimes in their bins. That's the weird part. Like you'll be flipping in the bin and they'll be like $5 record, $10 record, $15 record, $1,000 record,
Wow.
$20 record. And I'm just like, they really trust their clientele. Like I would not
No
put
doubt.
a $500 record in the bin for someone to flip through. That to me
Yeah.
is crazy. But the prices were all over the place. I found a lot of great deals. Japan values certain records differently than America. So like I knew stuff. I was like, oh well, this would do great in Portland versus here. So I was
Mhm.
able to kind of amass records like that. The really rare stuff I did find for the most part, the pricing was very high, like higher than Discogs,
Oh,
uh,
really?
which would make it impossible to justify bringing any of that stuff, like the multi-$100 stuff, back to the shop.
Yeah.
Um, so I didn't focus on that. I focused on more of the cool stuff for the bins, like you know, coveted albums, coveted American albums with the Japanese obi strip, or just like
Yeah.
records that I just know people want here that over there maybe to them were just more whatever, you know.
Yeah. Did you have to calculate per record what it would cost you to it can't be cheap to ship those records back.
No, and this year the shipping has actually gone up exponentially across the board. As you can imagine, there's a lot of kind of difficulty with shipping these
Yeah.
days.
Yeah.
And I was talking to some of my friends who own stores, and they were kind of blindsided as well when they went a couple months ago. So it it ended up costing a lot more. I think it was like through Japan Post, it was about $350 to ship a box of 60 records. So
Wow.
yeah. So I had to basically tack $6, $7 onto everything I bought.
And you gotta consider that when you're flipping through buying records too.
Yeah, because you have to do the conversion. I mean, the dollar is weak to the yen. I'm sorry, the yen is weak to the dollar. Wait, which way is it? The dollar's weak to the
It's
yen.
expensive either way.
It's expensive either way. But right
Yeah.
now, like in terms of buying, as with the American dollar, your dollar goes further. So that was nice. But then you have to factor in tax. They have a fairly high sales tax, and then you have to factor in the shipping cost.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was interesting. Like, do I think I did it perfectly my first time? No, I don't think I like made a fortune off of what I
Yeah.
bought, but I do think that it was a great life experience. I think that at the very least, I paid for my trip and broke even on the records I brought back,
That's
maybe
cool.
made a little bit. And I think moving forward, I kind of know how to navigate it a little better so that if and when I go again, I'll be able to kind of be more efficient.
Yeah, and I know you consider too that when you're bringing those records over, even if the profit isn't what you would like, it's that having that inventory in the store that somebody's gonna pick something up and go, "Oh, man, I've gotta come back because 'cause he's got this stuff here." Right? So
Yeah,
taking a little not having your normal profit margin or maybe what you would like, having something unique like that because, those aren't records that you're gonna find here. You
yeah.
went on the other side of the world to get them.
There is a huge value that I've noticed even before Japan of occasionally paying about market rate for a record that you think will get people into your shop, because
Yeah,
even if they buy that record at what you paid or give or take, they'll likely get other records that you have better margin on. So it's really like it's a game of how do I get people to see this and walk through the door and then let the records speak for themselves.
yeah, absolutely. That's cool. Okay, we're coming up close to an hour here, and I know you have to open the store today. You gotta get out and do your thing. And I know you got some other things to take care of too. So I like to end with 5 questions that I ask everybody before we say goodbye. Thank you
Sure.
so much, Matt, for coming on here and
Oh,
doing
this
this
is a
little chat.
blast.
It's great.
Anytime. Yeah. Thank you for
Okay,
thinking of
cool.
me.
Okay, a favorite album, doesn't have to be your favorite album, but tell me about an album that, like, hit you harder or that is a soundtrack to a certain time in your life or something that is just far and above anything else or within like in your something that's in your top 10 that you can talk about.
So I've actually done a series on my channel where it was like my top 100 albums, and it was like a long
Okay.
series. So I think that my top 5 or 10 really hasn't changed too much. I think they're all
Oh,
probably
right on.
there. Um, I guess I'll talk about. I'm looking at it right now, so I have it framed, a copy signed by the whole band. But
Oh,
are
wow.
you familiar with Tycho?
No. Uh-uh.
Tycho. So on first listen, it
I'm gonna
may
listen to him.
yeah,
Tycho.
Tycho, Tycho. And
Okay.
on first listen, it may appear that it's just a guy with like a laptop making like electronic music. But I remember really falling in love with their sound. It was really this lush, kind of meditative, entrancing, kind of like pretty down tempo electronics. And I went to go see Tycho live in LA, and I didn't know what to expect. And I walk into the room and I saw bass, piano, or bass, keyboard, drums, guitar, and I was like, wait, I was like, they're making this sound with a full band, and then I watched them perfectly replicate this very kind of almost digital sound of like synthy kind of vibey driving music with organic instruments. And I remember just being absolutely blown away that it was a full band and not just a guy at a computer, doing this.
Yeah.
And their album Awake is my favorite of their records.
What year
And
was that?
I think it was 2015, maybe.
Okay, so 10 years ago. All right.
And I think that's right. And I just that record not only was like the soundtrack to that era of LA when I started my YouTube channel and was kind of like listening to that while driving around all the time. 'Cause it was perfect day or night driving music. It also unlocked my love for kind of down tempo electronic music, and really opened my mind to a lot of different artists in that realm, and expanded my music taste from what I was listening to previously.
Okay. I don't know if I think you probably know, I'm a truck driver and I like to stream new stuff in the truck. This will be fun. I'll stream it this week in the truck. That'll be
I think
great.
you will love it. I think it's
Okay.
it's it's hard to argue how enjoyable it is.
Okay, cool. Next question. What's a meal that you never get tired of?
I'm a huge foodie, so
Yeah, I knew I figured, yeah, obviously
yeah,
going to Japan was a huge that part of it was a
that
huge
was a
deal.
dream.
Yeah.
Yeah, um, I mean, man, so there's so many answers to this question just because I just love food. But I think that if I had to eat like one thing for the rest of my life,
Mhm.
um, I think like a really high quality like poke bowl.
Ah, that's awesome. That
Like
is
I love
awesome.
raw fresh fish. I love rice. I love all the different like vegetables and things that can go in a poke bowl. It feels a lot of good textures, a lot of good colors, a lot of good
It's
flavors.
magic.
It's
Um,
magic when it's done right.
I don't know if everybody who's watching knows this, but I used to own a sushi shop here in Silverton,
Oh, I didn't know
and
that. That's awesome.
sushi and poke. And when we opened it, I didn't have poke, and my friend said to me, "Have you tried poke? Maybe you should try that." And it was amazing. And I created a menu with about 10 different poke bowls, and it it changed my life. It like if poke was an album, it'd be my top album. It is it's it's all the great things that sushi is and even more to
Agreed.
for me. Yeah. And there's
Yeah.
so many different variants and so many different things that you can put in it. That's what a great answer, man. A poke
Thank you.
bowl.
Yeah,
We're
I think
getting
that's
I
yeah.
hope do we have is there a good place to go in Portland for poke?
There are a few places I really like. Yeah, there's a place called I think C Suites that I like. Um, there's a few
I'll have to
spots.
look it
I
up.
can't yeah I can't remember all the names, but yeah, there's some good poke out here.
It's still where down south in California and stuff like that, it's more available and people know about it a little bit more. I still come across people all the time that don't know what poke is, and we don't have it's kind of just coming on board now in the
Yeah,
Northwest a little bit more.
yeah.
So, hopefully, we'll get some more good poke stores. That'd be great.
Yeah.
Okay, what does our country need right now?
That's a loaded question.
Yeah. It
Uh,
doesn't have to be a deep answer, just something that comes to
yeah.
mind.
I think we need another Rage Against the Machine album.
Yeah. That's perfect. That's great, dude. Will it happen?
No.
No, probably not. That's great. That's great. Okay. Um, what do you want people who disagree with you to know?
I want people to disagree with me to know that I'm a very passionate person when it comes to the things I love, but I'm also somebody that's very open to discussion. So if I ever am talking about something that I have a strong opinion about and I don't agree with you or vice versa, it's not that I want to be right. I want to just get into it. I want to talk about it. I want to hear your point of view. I want you to hear mine. And I think that discourse is so important before just making assumptions.
Awesome. Okay, we know you've been to Japan, but what is another place that you want to visit soon? Last question.
Um, well, I'm a huge fan of Brazilian music.
Mm,
So I think Brazil is towards the top of my list. I've never been to that part of the world. The food is amazing,
hmm
and I know that like all the hip hop heads have been there, and like Madlib and all these people have cleared out all the honey holes of Brazilian records over the past
Oh,
15
wow.
years. Questlove, all these people have really done the dig, but I do like to think that I can go there and unearth some gems.
Yeah.
I always want our world music section, specifically our Brazilian music section, to be larger in the store. So I think that that would be a fun thing to do what I did in Japan, where I just go there and get a bunch of boxes of Brazilian records and send them back.
Okay.
Yeah,
Do you know who is it Roberto Carlos? Does that name ring a bell? I
Roberto
think
Carlos.
he was I have a 74 that I got recently and he was big in Brazil. I think he was called the King or something like that. But I don't know.
Embarrassingly, I'm like, I love Brazilian music, and I'm like, I'm
Well,
not quite
you're
sure if I
but this would have been like he would have been like a Sinatra or an Elvis figure, I think. So
gotcha.
I think
Yeah,
older. Yeah.
I'm more into like the bossa nova and samba and
Okay.
some of the psychedelic stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I'm a more of like a João Gilberto, George Ben, Gilberto Gil, Gal Costa,
Okay.
so like some of the bigger names. But yeah, I just love. I think bossa nova is like the greatest thing to listen
Oh,
to at
fantastic.
any
I
time,
think South America is like a hidden gem that not a lot of people talk about.
especially for psych.
Really?
Yeah,
Interesting.
yeah.
Okay. We have our I don't know if you know in Salem here our local shop is called Drum Bug
Oh,
and
I don't think I've been.
they're just they have drums in the back and records up front and it's a Chilean couple that used to live in LA but moved up here I don't know a few years ago and they have it's basically like our only record shop in Salem
Huh.
which is kind of a bummer but they're good people and I need to twist their ear a little bit about South American music
Yeah,
and see what they
there's a
have to
lot to
say.
discover world music wise. It's an
That's cool.
endless font.
That's cool. All right, Matt. It's a little bit past. I'll wrap it up. And again, thank you so much. And I'll be coming up in the next couple weeks, say hi to you while you're in the store and dig a little bit more, and we'll go from there. So thanks everybody for. I didn't get into the chat at all, but it's all good. I appreciate you hanging out, the little group that we have here, and we'll see you next Sunday with somebody new. Take care.
Thanks, Marty.
You bet, man. Okay.